Hi, Chuck Huber here for the Stata YouTube channel. Today I'd like to show you how to do some basic data preparation and analyses using Stata. I'm going to assume that you've already downloaded and installed Stata, but you're fairly new to Stata, and will be sort of an example of one of your first experiences with Stata. So what I have here is the famous auto dataset stored in Excel format. And one of the reasons I wanted to begin with this is because often we get our data in formats that are other than Stata datasets. And so I want to show you how to get your data into Stata. So to begin, let's open Stata. I've already set up an icon here at the bottom of my screen. So I'm going to click this and open Stata. And I'm going to go back to my Excel spreadsheet. And one way that I can get these data into Stata is to simply select the data. I'm going to grab this here. And I'm going to select everything except for the first row. And right click and select copy. And then if I go back to Stata, I can open the data editor using one of these two icons here on the toolbar. Notice that one of them says data editor browse, the other says data editor edit. So I'm going to click the data editor edit icon. That way I can edit my data in the data editor. So next I'm going to right click here in the data editor and select paste. And now I can see that my data are in the data editor. Now, one of the downsides of getting your data into Stata this way is that notice that the variable names still say var1, var2, var3, and I could go through and rename them if I wanted to, but that's a little tedious. So a slightly better way of doing this, I'm just going to type clear to clear out the data, Stata's data memory, and I'm going to click File and go to Import, and then select Excel Spreadsheet. And this will open the Import Excel dialog box. At the top of the dialog box, I can click Browse, and then I'm going to select auto.xlsx, and then when I click Open, the dialog box will actually show me a preview of the data that are in that particular spreadsheet. I can select the worksheet within the spreadsheet, and I can also select the cell range if I want to here at the top. Notice in the first row here we have what look like variable names, and in fact they are the variable names, so I'm going to check this little box next to import first row as variable names, and now I can see that the first row have become the variable names. If I wanted to, I could import all of the data as strings and then clean them carefully later on, but I'm just going to import them the way they are. If I wanted to change the case of the variable names, I could either keep them the way they are using preserve, or I can make them all lowercase or all uppercase. So I'm just going to leave them alone. So I'm going to click OK. And the dialog box issues the command import Excel. And this is followed by the file name. And then I have the option sheet because I imported this from sheet 1. And I also have the option first row, which is what told Stata to import the first row of data as the variable names. So here if I look in the variables window, I can see a list of the variables that are, or partial list anyway, of the variables that are in this data set. And I can also go over here to the data editor, and I can see the data are in my data editor and the variable names are named correctly. Now if I scroll across and take a look at the data, I've intentionally mucked this up a little bit so I can show you some data cleaning features. Gear ratio, for instance, has a lot of extraneous decimal places here off to the right, and so I might not want to round them. I might want to keep my data as accurate as they can be, but I don't want to see all those decimals every time I open my data editor. What I can do is I can go over here to the variables window and select gear ratio, and then in the properties window below this I can select format, and notice that there's this little box with 3 dots in it. I can click that, and this will allow me to format gear ratio however I like. So what I'm going to do is select fixed numeric, and then here below, for the digits right of the decimal, I'm going to select 2. And the total digits for gear ratio will be 10. So if I click OK, now notice that gear ratio only displays, or the data are only displayed to 2 decimals of accuracy. It didn't round the data, it simply changes the display format and makes it easier to read. So that's one thing I can do with the properties window here. Another thing I might like to do is label foreign. Notice that foreign is stored as 0 and 1, and so 1 indicates foreign and 0 indicates domestic. But it would be nice if these were actually labeled clearly. So what I can do over here in the variables window is select foreign, and then below where it says value labels, notice there's a little arrow here. There are no value labels there. So I can create one by clicking on the little 3-dot box here next to it. And what I want to do is create a new label. So I'm going to click Create Label, and I'm going to name it Foreign, and then I'm going to assign some values and some labels. So for the value 0, I'm going to assign the label Domestic. Let me just spell it correctly. Domestic. And then I'm going to click Add, and this associates the label Domestic with the value 0. And then for the value of 1, I want this to be labeled Foreign. And then I'm going to click Add. And so now the label Foreign will be associated with the value of 1. And if I click OK, and then close, notice that they still aren't labeled yet. What I need to do is associate the value labeling scheme Foreign with the variable Foreign. And now I can see that the values are labeled correctly in my data set. Okay. So another thing I might like to do is create a new variable. So for instance, let's go to Data and Create or Change Data. And I'm going to click Create New Variable. And what I'd like to do is create a new variable based on an expression. And what I'd like to do, I have a variable called MPG, or miles per gallon, in this data set. But I might like to create a variable called kilometers per liter. So I'm going to create a new variable called KPL. And here where it says specify a value or expression, I can click Create, and this will open the expression builder. And the expression builder shows me all kinds of things. I can expand this and see arithmetic operators and all kinds of functions that are organized by different types of functions, subscripts. One of the things I can see is a list of the variables. So what I want to do is select MPG and then multiply that times 0.425. And when I click OK, and then OK again, Stata will create or generate the variable KPL, which is equal to miles per gallon times the conversion factor of 0.425. Now if I look over here in the variables window, I see the variable KPL, but it might not be obvious what KPL stands for. So what I'd like to do is actually label that variable. So I'm going to select KPL, and here at the bottom, I still have the properties window. Notice I clicked this little unlock lock button. So it looks like a little lock. Here it's locked because the loop is closed. When I unlock it, you can see it looks like a padlock that's been unlocked. And what I'm going to do is come down here to Label and type kilometers per liter. And when I press Enter, now I can see that the Properties window issued the command label variable KPL kilometers per liter. And then if I look here back in my variables window, I can see that it's labeled kilometers per liter. Okay. Now, I might want to describe all of these variables so I can see the labels and things like that. So here I'm going to go to Data, and I'm going to select Describe. And I'm going to select Describe data in memory or in a file. Now, this is a very useful tool. I can either describe the data that are in memory, but if I wanted to, I could describe data from a disk. I don't actually have to open a data set to describe it. And this can be useful when you have very large data sets with hundreds of variables, and you don't want to pull them all up into memory. You can just kind of browse through or describe them from the disk. But these data are in memory, so I'm going to leave that selected, and I could select specific variables if I wanted to, but I'm going to leave this empty. And what that will do is simply describe all of the data and all the variables in the data set. So this issues the command describe. I can see that there are 74 observations in the data set. There are 13 variables in the data set. And below that, I can see the variables. So I have the variable make. It's stored as a 17-character long string. It's displayed as a string, and it has no value label, and the variable label is make. Further down, I have foreign, which I labeled earlier. So foreign is stored as a byte variable. It's stored as a general, or displayed, as a general number format. It uses the value label foreign, and the variable itself is labeled foreign. So what this shows me is a list of the variable names, the storage types, the display formats, the value labels, as well as the variable labels. Okay. Now I might also like to summarize these data, and I can do this by going to Statistics, Summaries, Tables, and Tests, and then I'm going to select Summary and Descriptive Statistics, and then Summary Statistics. and this will open the Summarize dialog box. Again, I could select specific variables if I wanted to, but if I leave the box empty and click OK, this will issue the command Summarize, and this will show me summary statistics, basic summary statistics for the variables in the data set. So I have a column of observations, the mean, the standard deviation, the min, and the max. This is a really useful command just for getting to know your data, looking for, do I have missing data? For instance, the variable rep78 only has 69 observations, whereas most of the others contain 74. I can look at the mins and the maxes for unusual values like negative weights or unusual things like that. I also might want to create some graphics, so I could go to Graphics and select Histogram, and this will open the histogram dialog box. And so here I'm just going to select a variable, maybe miles per gallon or mpg, and I can click Submit. Now the difference between Submit and OK is that if I click OK, it's going to run the command and then close the dialog box. But if I click Submit, it runs the command, but it leaves the dialog box open. And I like to do this for graphs in particular because I can create the graph and see what it looks like, and then maybe I want to modify it some. So in this case, I might want to click on the Density Plots tab here, and I could add a normal density plot to my histogram and click Submit. And this will overlay a normal density. I could go back and I could change, for instance, in the main tab, the number of bins, the width of the bins, and so forth, and customize this any way I like. But that's all I'm going to do with the histogram for now. So I'm going to click Cancel. I might also want to create a pie chart. So I could go to Graphics and select Pie Chart. And just select the categorical variable. So in this case, I might want to see a pie chart of foreign and domestic. So I'm going to click OK. And this shows me a pie chart for the proportion of cars that were foreign cars or domestic cars. I could create a box plot. Let's take a look at how to create graphs by separate variables. So here I could select a variable like mpg, and I might want to compare the miles per gallon by a grouping variable. So here I've clicked on the Categories tab and checked the box next to Group 1. And I'd like to see a box plot by foreign. And I'm going to click Submit so I can show you a little trick. So what this does is it creates two box plots, one for domestic cars and one for foreign cars. The vertical axis is, of course, miles per gallon. And here it looks like foreign cars get a little bit better gas mileage than the domestic cars. Often we like to show these horizontally, so I could go back to the main tab and check this box next to horizontal and click Submit. And that will show the same box plots, but with the axis on the horizontal axis, the descriptive, quantitative, like MPG on the horizontal axis. Okay, so let's close these. I'm going to click Cancel here. Okay, so let's say that we'd like to fit a linear regression model. I can go to Statistics, and I'm going to select Linear Models and Related, and then Linear Regression, and this will open the Regress dialog box. Here I can see in the Models tab a box where I can select the dependent variable. So in this case I'm going to select MPG, and then I can select my independent variables. Maybe I'd like to include weight and foreign, and I'm going to click Submit. And here I can see the command is regress followed by the dependent variable MPG, and then followed by the covariates weight and foreign. And at the top of the output I can see my ANOVA table and my F statistic and R squared model statistics. And then below that I see my table of coefficients with their standard errors and confidence intervals and so forth. So that's how I could fit a linear regression model, but let me show you a little trick if I want to fit a slightly more sophisticated model. I can click this little three-dot box here, and this will allow me to use Stata's factor variable notation. And so what I would like to do, I've selected factor variable here at the top, and I might want to include a two-way full factorial model as opposed to just the main effects. So what this allows me to do is select two variables. For instance, I might like to select weight, and weight is continuous, so I'm going to check this box here where it says treat variable as continuous. And I don't need to specify time series operators or anything like that. And then the other variable is foreign. Foreign is categorical, so I'm not going to check the box this time next to underneath C. And I don't need to specify time series operators, and I'm not going to mess with base or anything. So once I've done this, I can click Add to var list, And I will show you what this means here in just a moment. So I'm going to click OK, and this will make this now the independent variables. So let's click OK. And I want to take a look at the syntax. Now the syntax is regress followed by the dependent variable. And then I can see the covariates in a slightly different format. I can see c.weight, which tells Stata that weight is a continuous variable. And I also see foreign here. Foreign doesn't have an I dot. Let me rerun this and show you another version of the syntax. I'm going to put an I dot in front of this. It isn't necessary, but I just want you to be aware of it. So I've added an I dot in front of foreign, and that tells Stata explicitly that foreign is a categorical variable. And then I have these two sharps or pound signs, symbols, in between the two. And what this tells Stata is that I'd like to see the main effect of weight treated as continuous, the main effect of foreign treated as a categorical variable, as well as the interaction between these two variables. And if I look at my coefficients, I see exactly that in the output. I have a coefficient for weight, I have a coefficient for foreign, the main effect of foreign, as well as the interaction, the coefficient for the interaction of the two. Okay, so that's sort of a shorthand way of specifying interactions in full factorial models. Now, after we fit our model, we can do some other things. Stata has what we call an estimation, post-estimation paradigm. So we estimate our parameters or fit our model, and then we can do other things after we fit the model. So we can see those things by going to Statistics, and then I'm going to scroll down to Post-Estimation right here, and I'm going to click this, and this will show me the Post-Estimation selector. And this shows me the different things I can do after I fit a linear regression model, and this works after lots of features in Stata. So for instance, I might want to calculate marginal effects, tests, contrasts, predictions, diagnostic tests, and plots, all kinds of things. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to expand marginal effects, estimated means, and interactions. And then I'm going to expand marginal means and interaction analysis. Then I'm going to select interaction plot and click launch. And this will open the margins dialog box. So I'm going to move this up here. And now what I can do is I can calculate marginal predictions based on the model I fit. So I might want to include a continuous covariate such as weight that was in my model. And I might want to calculate my predictions for weight at 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, 3,500, and 4,000. And then I might also like to see do the calculations including an interaction with another covariate, specifically the categorical covariate foreign. Okay? And I'm going to uncheck this box for now so I can just show you some things. So I'm going to click OK. And here, okay, if we scroll back up, we can see that Stata, or the dialog box, issued the command margins foreign at values of weight equal to 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, 3,500, and 4,000. After that, if I want, I can type margins plot, and Stata will create a graph of those predictions. Okay, so we can go from fitting a regression model to calculating predictions from that model, marginal predictions, to a graph in 3 commands. It's really easy and it's really useful for visualizing the results of our models. So let me show you a little trick that you can do here after you're finished with your analyses. I'm going to select actually I'll leave clear in here. I'm going to select clear at the top and then go down to margins plot. And I'm going to remove the one with the red here, the one with the error. And I'm going to right click anywhere on this shaded area and select Send Selected to Do File Editor. And what this will do is send all of those commands to a do file editor that I can save, and I can rerun this anytime. This is very useful because all of my analyses are now reproducible. Even though I used the point and click interface, the dialog boxes, I can recreate all of my analyses anytime I like. If you're not a dialog box person and you prefer to simply type commands, you can do that also in the do file editor and then save those and use them again later. A couple other things that I want to show you before I leave here. If we go to Statistics and I go open that Linear Models and Related dialog box again, if I'm using a command or a dialog box and I'm not really familiar with something or I'd like to know what maybe an option does, I can click this little icon at the bottom left. Pretty much every dialog box in Stata has a little question mark icon at the bottom left, and if I click that, that will open Stata's help file for that particular command. And this includes things like syntax, and it will have a description of things. It will show you where to find it in the menu, and it will also have some basic examples to get you up and running. Now, if you want more information about a command, you can click right at the very top of the help file underneath the title. It says View Complete PDF Manual Entry, and if I click on that, that will open the PDF documentation for that particular command. So here I can see the PDF documentation for the regress command. At the very top of this, you can see that there are hot links to things like remarks and examples and methods and formulas and things like that. So I can click remarks and examples, and this will take me to some examples, and then they're further hot linked underneath for things like maybe robust standard errors. I can click that and go to that example. Okay. One last thing that you can do is if you go back to the command window, you can search for things specifically. So I might want to type search regress, and I want to search the manual. So I can type manual, and this will show me a listing of any place that regress appears in the manuals. If I wanted to search the frequently asked questions, I can type search regress, comma, FAQ, and this will search Stata's frequently asked questions. And if I wanted to search the Stata journal, for instance, I could type search regress, comma, SJ, and that will show me all of the occurrences of the word regress in the Stata journal. So those are some of the things you can do with Stata. I hope this will help get you up and running, and I hope it was helpful. Thanks for stopping by.